Well, hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Amazing Seller Podcast. This is episode number 339, and today I've got a rare personal episode for you. It's a little bit different, I'm going to warn you, but I think that you guys will get value from this, and I'm going to tell you exactly how this thing even came about. But the topic is really, what's the secrets to my personal work-life balance to being a good dad and a husband? Now, a lot of you know that it can become, at times, really, really overwhelming. It could become stressful, creating the lifestyle that you want, all of that stuff. How do you do it though? Like, how do you manage that without it interfering with your, with your personal life? Because you don't want to take away from that, because that's a lot of times that's what you're striving for. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to play for you a message that was left on the voicemail for Ask Scott. Now, Ask Scott is generally questions about how to sell on Amazon or how to sell on e-commerce or just business marketing questions. Well, Gordon Light had emailed me, or actually messaged me, and I listened to it. And on my bad, I didn't listen to it. I must have missed it as I was going through my calls. And I went back and listened to it, and he really asked this question, and I'm going to play it for you so you can kind of see how this whole thing took place. But just to kind of give you a little bit of a heads up, I reached out to Gordon after the fact and I said, hey, Gordon, how about we do this? How about you come on the podcast? You go ahead and interview me on all of these little questions that you have about my personal life, and I'll answer them. And then we'll share it with my audience. And, we'll just have a casual conversation about this, because I do think it's interesting. And I always like to kind of go back and try to almost see like where these things came about, how it kind of came into fruition and all of that. So that's what I want to do here. So hopefully you guys are going to enjoy this. I think you will. And he seemed to think that a lot of my audience would probably get a lot of value from this. And that's why he asked the question. So let me just play the original message so you can see where this all came from. And then from there, I'm going to play this interview where Gordon actually interviews me, and we dig into some really deep personal topics. And I think that you're going to get value from that. So let's go ahead and listen to this message from Gordon.
Hi, Scott. My name is Gordon. I'm from Massachusetts. And first and foremost, I want to tell you that you have changed my life in so many ways. I would love to have the opportunity to tell you all the ways that that's happened. I can't really do it here on this recording, but you have completely flipped my life around 180 degrees in my mindset, my whole approach to everything that I do on a daily basis. I feel like I owe you a hug. I really do. I appreciate everything once again. So thank you. Thank you. All the content you've been putting out over the years is just incredible, and I've gotten so much value out of it. So anyway, moving on, I do have a question for you. It is unrelated to selling on Amazon, and it's unrelated to FBA. But before you hang up on me, just hear me out. I have an invitation that I'd like to extend to you to be a guest on my podcast that will be coming out this winter. It is called Fit Successful Dad, and it is a podcast that is focused on interviewing and dissecting the brains of inspiring, successful entrepreneurs like yourself who are also parents and seem to be successful in parenting. You are a textbook example of what I would consider a person who is a successful entrepreneur who also doubles as a parent, right? And you've done so 3 times. You've got 2 daughters, 1 son, and they both your older children seem like they're doing incredible. Your youngest daughter is well on her way. She seems like she's following in the same paths in terms of having good, strong work ethic and broadening her mind and thinking, and just not being a linear person. She's growing and developing, and you talk about that, and it's awesome. So I would love to bring you on the show to talk about how exactly you have gone through all of the stages of your business life while having and raising children, and how you manage to do both. And you've talked a little bit about scheduling time in your calendar for family time and scheduling time for work time, and you never cross the two, and that's awesome. That's a really good strategy, and that's a really good tactic for making sure that you dedicate time and you're efficient in everything you're doing. But if we take a step further, right, and we look at the specific things that you do in your family life specifically raising your children, how do you tackle the morals and ethics and values and teachings and all the things that you consider super important to pass on to children? How do you tackle the execution of doing that? And how does that affect your business? And likewise, how do your business strategies and your way of doing business with people and talking to suppliers and talking to contractors and hiring VAs and employees, how does communicating with them and talking to them and teaching them, how does that affect dealing with your children? And there's there's many layers to this, right, that I'd like to get into with all of the guests that we're interviewing. We'd like to interview one guest a week or air a podcast episode with one guest per week, in addition to probably 2 other episodes per week. They're a little bit shorter that really just include me speaking on a topic that I and my audience find important. So we're putting together the initial guest list now. I knew you had to be on it. You are one of the first people I thought of when I started assembling the guest list. I think you're an awesome guy. I love your story. And the people helping me out with this podcast also love your story, and they love everything you stand for. It's incredible. So we'd really love to hear back from you and hopefully have you on as a guest. So again, my name is Gordon from Massachusetts. Go Bruins. Give me a shout back. Really look forward to hearing back from you, Scott. Take care. Have an awesome day. Bye.
All right, so I'm just going to cut back in here real quick. So that was the phone call. That was the voicemail that Gordon left. And then initially, I just thought I was going to play that message and then just talk about it. But I said, why not have him come on and ask those questions that I might not even think of? So that's what we're going to do here. Now, I just will warn you, it's kind of long. It's going to be over an hour long. And it was funny. We planned on just 30 minutes, and it just kept going and going. And he even cut down on some of the questions he wanted to ask. So anyway, hopefully you get value from this. Let me know in the comments on the blog or email me. Just let me know what you think. And I'd really be interested to know if this has been helpful, because I know a lot of people out there, whether you're a husband, whether you're a wife, like work balance, time, how much time do you devote, all of that stuff is pretty important, and a question I get asked a ton. So hopefully this is going to shed a little bit of light on my personal beliefs, and also a lot of the structure in my life and how I create a lifestyle business to support my lifestyle. All right, so enjoy this interview with me and Gordon Light. All right, Gordon, I am excited, man, because this is something that we talked about doing, and you sent in a voicemail about wanting to know a little bit more about how you balance life as an entrepreneur and family and, being a husband and all that stuff. And you thought it would be interesting to dive into this deep. And I said, you know what? Let's do it. But let's do it where you interview me on my show. And then if you want to repurpose it, that's fine. You can use it on your show too. I don't care. And that's what we're going to do here. So thanks so much for coming on and hanging out with me.
Oh, Scott, it's really a pleasure. It's funny too, because I left you that voicemail. Gosh, I think it was a while ago. A couple of months.
Yeah, and that's my bad. That's totally my bad. And the thing is just for people to know too, like when you submit a question on Ask Scott, it's generally about a month to a month and a half out. And it looks like yours might have got pushed down for some reason. And when I went to listen to it, I was like, oh man, I should have probably responded, to this like earlier, because, maybe he wanted to have me on his podcast like earlier. So anyway, I apologize for that, but I'm so glad we were able to do it now.
Hey, no, I really appreciate it. And, for those who don't know, and probably for you a little bit, the purpose of my podcast and the purpose of my brand, it actually is tied in with TAS a little bit. And I'll just tell you a little bit why. Cool. So a couple of years ago, first of all, my name is Gordon Light, and I'm a father, and I am a husband, and I'm an electrical engineer, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But dialing back the clock a couple of years, I came across the TAS podcast in its very, very early stages. Yeah. And I was really just kind of looking for something. I was looking to scratch that kind of entrepreneurial itch that I knew was there, sure, but I didn't really know how to even start, actually taking action on it. And it was pretty cool. It was like the timing was absolutely perfect. My sister was the one who recommended you. I listened to it, and I immediately started carving out little windows of time in my very, very crazy schedule. And I went from just kind of a 9-to-5 job to also creating a brand and launching that on Amazon. And I had, and I still do, I still have multiple products with multiple variations. And they weren't, as you call them, home runs.
Right.
But I did hit multiple base hits.
I love base hits.
Yeah, base hits are great.
Base hits are, hey, in the baseball world, I'll take a guy that hits like 10 base hits versus 1 home run every 30 at bats.
Absolutely, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, a base hit every time is better than nothing. So,
yeah.
So it's going great. And not only have I made my money back, I've profited considerably. I've gone on to explore Amazon merch, that whole platform, which is really, really cool. And talk about a program that almost requires, it's almost a completely passive thing. I highly recommend anybody who's considering anything to check that out.
And currently, though, merch is still by invite only. As far as when we're recording this right now, it still is, as far as I know, right? I mean,
yes.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah, because I'm actually, it's funny. I've got 3 brands that I'm working with, and every one of them I said apply, because that way it'll give me 3 chances to get on that platform. And we just literally I got an email 2 days ago from someone that said, that I'm working with, that said we're in. So we're just about ready to start getting into that. And now I think also it limits you to only having 10 designs up at once. Is kind of what it gave us as our threshold right now. So if you have 10 designs, you can launch them, and then if you want to launch another one, you got to get rid of one and then start another one. That's at least how it's working right now.
Oh wow, that means they made some changes. Well, First of all, welcome to the Merch Club. I think you'll be really, really successful with it based on everything I know about you. But that's interesting they changed it to 10, because when I got invited and accepted, it was 25.
Oh wow! And
then I believe you have to hit 100 sales total, and then they start tiering you up. I mean, it's different. It seems to be different for everybody, but 10 is the lowest that I've heard.
It'll probably work the same way too. And like now, if you hit 10 and you get 100, then it'll probably bring you up to maybe the next threshold, whatever that is what I'm assuming.
Yeah. I
think you got to prove yourself before you just start throwing up shirts and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Back in the day, no, it is. That's what it is. And back in the day, I think there was no threshold limit. Yep. So you could literally be invited and get accepted, and then throw up 1,000 designs and just kind of monopolize it.
Exactly.
But anyway, so dialing back a little bit. So I went to launch a brand and a couple different products, physical products. Then I got into merch, and then I started to explore some other things outside of Amazon. And where I found myself almost 2 years later is supplementing my income with this whole separate side gig that really, it's not something that takes an extra 8 or 9 hours a day on top of my 8 or 9 hours a day that I was working my full-time job. It's almost like this, I guess you might call it a side hustle.
Right. Yeah, you would.
But I haven't had to forego my family dynamic at home, my relationship with my son, which is probably the thing I hold nearest and dearest to my heart, the relationship with my wife, my social life. I mean, these are things that I was able to do in just small pockets of time, pretty much throughout the week, and I still have my weekends. And so the goal of my podcast and the goal of my whole brand here, Fit Successful Dad, is really to reach out to other parents, and it almost entirely applies to parents. It's kind of my target niche, my target audience. Sure. And just kind of show them that, having kids in the house and being married and having these domestic things going on, it's not a hindrance to kind of chasing an entrepreneurial lifestyle. And it's actually, in my opinion, it's more of an enhancement, and it's more of something that can actually be a motivator to create that lifestyle. Right.
I agree.
And so that's that. And yeah, you're a perfect, kind of like a textbook example of that. And just based on the podcast.
Yeah, appreciate that.
The TAS podcast and the story that you've been telling over the past few years, and which I think is great. And I think it resonates really well with your audience. And also I think it'll resonate with my audience. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to kind of dive a little bit deeper into what makes Scott Volker so successful.
Yeah. Well, and I want to say, like, going back to your voicemail, like, in my first thought was like, oh, this is cool. This is a cool topic. I'd be excited to talk about this. I mean, I love talking about business. I love talking about like Amazon. I love talking about different platforms, building your email list. I love that stuff. Like I can talk about this stuff for days, for hours, right? But this topic or any other topic around just lifestyle and the why of why we actually do things and creating that plan, and to me, it's all about building the lifestyle first and then building the businesses around that to support it is key. So whenever I get a chance to talk about this, I love it. And I initially just said, oh, you know what? I'm going to play his voicemail like I do on Ask Scott, and I'm going to then create a podcast about it. And I'm like, you know what? let me go ahead and try to flip this around and have, Gordon come on and kind of interview me, but then he can also share it with his audience, and it'll kind of help both audiences. And I think, some people are going to be interested and some people might be like, I want the next, Amazon tactic, and that's fine. But this session, I think for us will be really just deep diving into that. And, like I told you before we even got on here and recorded, like I like taking these wherever they go. So I know you have a little bit of a direction you want to go, but I'm sure that it'll take different paths and different turns because there's so many different things that go into this that a lot of people would just look at, well, you just wake up and you kind of go to work. There is some planning in that to create the lifestyle, So yeah, I'm excited, man. This is going to be fun.
Awesome. All right, cool. Let's jump right into it then.
Let's do it.
Okay. So Scott Volker,
Yes.
Before we get into all of the vast list of business things you got going on,
Yeah.
Why don't you tell everybody, myself included, what has you excited right now? What has you pumped up right now?
Oh man, there's so much. That is a tough one. And I know you gave me some questions beforehand, but I didn't really think this one through. But on a personal level, just life in general. Like I've got a 9-year-old daughter. I've got an 18-year-old son who's going to be 19 in April. I've got a 21-year-old daughter who will be 22 in July. She's getting married. My 18-year-old is in college and he's pursuing his dreams right now. And I'm helping support him in that. And that's really exciting to see how, and again, we can talk about this a little bit later, but how he's kind of, and my older daughter, how they've kind of, because they've been brought up in this lifestyle, they've taken on a whole nother mindset that a lot of kids their age haven't, which I think is pretty cool. And I'm pretty proud of that. So we can definitely dive into that. And my 9-year-old just really keeps it fun. Like, I mean, today we've got volleyball at 4:00. Like, so my calendar is cleared. We're going to volleyball. We watch her, practice. Then we watch her play some games, and it's just a lot of fun. So that's what's got me the most excited, like enjoying life, like enjoying the time that we have here today together and really embracing that, being grateful for everything that I have the chance to explore and to enjoy. So that's, in a nutshell, like that's what's got me the most excited in life. The other part, which is it's right up there, is being able to help more people through my podcast. Like that, this has been something that I again, never planned. I'd hoped at one time, at one point in my life that I'd be able to share my story or share a message with people and have them actually use it to their advantage and to create a better life. Kind of like yourself, like you're actually a perfect example of what I love to hear, because it means that you actually listened and you were inspired enough to actually take action. And from there, it's made some changes in your life. Even if it's the smallest, it's done something. So that's what's really got me the most excited inside of outside of my family, is helping more people and reach more people. And those people that are doubting themselves because maybe they've done other things and they don't think that they're capable, or they don't have enough time, or they come up with excuses to try to allow them to not try something so they don't fail. Because that's a lot of times the reason why they don't start is because they just don't want to fail. It's not really the time. We can all fit time somewhere, like watch one less show or something. But it just comes down to figuring that stuff out. But that's got me the most excited. The podcast, because that helps me reach thousands of people on a regular basis, and Facebook Lives and all that stuff. And then I've got little programs that I'm creating to also help people. We've got one right now called the 1K Fast Track, which is helping people really make their first $1,000. Because I think if I can help them make their first 1,000, then they'll go on to make their next 5, and then 10, and then 20. So yeah, that's what's really got me the most excited right now for business and in life.
Scott, that's not what I expected. So the reason I love that answer so much is because first and foremost was your response about your family. Yeah. Right? You just got very specific about your 3 kids and their current situations. And that was kind of number one. And then number 2 was your podcast and how you're helping people. Now, those are 2 things that they don't make you money. Right? No. Those are 2 things that are just you do, and you get fulfillment out of those things. Yeah. Which is awesome. And I ask that question a lot to a lot of people when I interview them. And a lot of times the response is how many 6-figure, things they've got going on down the pipeline. So it's pretty cool to hear that. And,
I mean, Gordon, on that though, let me just say, because when I started the podcast, there was no money being generated through the podcast. As of right now, just to be totally transparent, there is money that's coming through the podcast, but it was never the plan in the beginning as to when. So there wasn't like a plan to go out there and set out. So some people would say, yeah, Scott, you're just going to keep doing that because, you're monetizing that now. And the answer is yes, but for the first 50, 60 episodes, there wasn't a dollar generated for the podcast. And there was, hours upon hours of dedication. And to me, on the front end, I don't even know. You didn't purchase any of my stuff currently. Any programs, you might have did some tools through an affiliate or something, but nothing really like a program. So, because I helped you, that doesn't mean that you're less valuable to me. But I just know it's kind of like the Zig Ziglar, right? The more people that you help get what they want, the more that you'll be able to receive. And I'm not sure if that's exactly what it was, but it was darn close, right? It's just help more people get what they want out of life and good things will happen. That's the motto. So for me, I want to go out there and wow people with the free content that I can deliver to hopefully change lives. And if I do, it'll start to really create almost like a movement in a sense, to where then we can just create this amazing community that supports each other on a regular basis. So I just want to be clear, the podcast, yes, it doesn't generate money on the podcast itself. There's no sponsorships. As of right now, I don't currently have sponsorships, and I've been offered, I've actually been offered 6 figures to be on the podcast for a 6-month deal. And I've turned that down because I didn't want to dilute my content, and I didn't want to take away from my message and from everything that I believe in. So just to kind of be upfront there, I just wanted to again, I'm honest and transparent with everyone. I just want people to understand the entire picture.
Well, as a TAS fan, I certainly appreciate that. I do think that you're in a position now where you probably should consider monetizing, but you are so passionate about not, like you said, diluting the content.
Yes.
Which is something that, is a term you came up with on your own, and that's something that you feel very strongly about.
Yeah.
So, it's your own thing, but I see absolutely no issue with someone like yourself monetizing. And in fact, I'm a person who has reaped so many benefits from listening to TAS that I've gone on to make considerable amount of money from it.
Right.
And you're right, I did not purchase anything from you, and everything that I got from you, that education was entirely 100% free.
Exactly.
So I feel like I should be thanking you, actually.
Yeah, no, and that's and to me though, but it's awesome, right? Because and I just want to kind of I want to stay on course here, but I was never planning on creating any type of training or anything like that. That wasn't my thing. But I had a lot of people that weren't like you that were like, Scott, I just want step by step. I want paint by numbers. I want you to walk me through every single step. And I had that over and over and over again. And that's where we came up with our PLC classroom. So that's kind of how that kind of happened. It was my audience telling me what they wanted. And again, another lesson for anyone listening, whether you're selling physical products, whether you're selling digital products, listen to your audience and then help them and give them what they want. It's that simple. Don't try to make it too complicated. That's a win-win for everyone, Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Okay, so I know just from listening to your podcast that you have several brands. You don't talk about them, and that's okay. Specifically what they
Sure.
are. But what specifically, and be as specific as you can.
Yeah.
What specifically are you doing on top of those brands, and maybe dig into how many different brands and variations and SKUs maybe you have.
Yeah.
What are you doing to generate revenue today?
Well, there's a lot of things. If we go back to even the front of my story, which I shared in episode 300 of my podcast. So if you're listening to this on my podcast, it's theamazingseller.com/300. If you're listening to it on yours, you can still go to that link and you'll get that podcast episode. And that was really all the way back to the beginning when I was 18 years old. I graduated high school and how I got started and all that stuff. My wife and I owned a photography business and a brick and mortar. We grew that pretty successfully into a 6-figure business. And then we moved that to a digital products business where we were selling templates and stuff for digital photographers. And we still run that today. So that brings in money. It still brings in money, and it's almost passive. We work on that maybe a few hours a month. We have paid members that pay every single month to be part of that, and then we deliver products to those people every single month. So that's a steady flow of revenue. And then, like you said, then there's brands inside of, I have a personal one that I started from scratch before I even started the podcast. That one there has kind of been on passive, just kind of letting it go. And the reason for that, a lot of the reason is when I started, I didn't really know, like a lot of people, what direction I wanted to go. So one reason that I kind of just let that kind of stay where it is, I haven't added any more SKUs in a while. I think right now we have probably, counting variations, probably about 10 SKUs, maybe 8 to 10 SKUs. And I haven't added one in probably a year. And that still generates between 15 and 20,000 in revenue every single month. And we're probably about 30 to 35% margin. And when I say that one's passive, I mean like literally we just order inventory and replenish, like a little bit of pay-per-click, sponsored ads. I really use it as a testing ground as well, because now I can kind of test certain things in there. And the other reason is I've had people email me, and this will probably get people to even do it deeper, but I've had people say, Scott, I know what you sell. You've exposed yourself. And so I didn't cover my tracks because I didn't know I was going to have a podcast. So it's kind of like, all right, well, cool. So now what should I do? Should I keep filling that and kind of, pushing more product to there? Or because now, as some people, when you get into the space, you get in the spotlight, some people want to take you down as well. So I've had haters, I've had negative people come, try to attack me. And, so because of that, I've kind of let it go. But even though I've let it go, it's still consistently been at 15 to 20, and some months, approaching 25K a month, with literally about less than an hour a day, probably like 15 minutes a day. And that's no exaggeration. So that's been a nice little set and almost forget type of thing. The other one I did as a test brand with someone that I was helping on the side, and I'm an equal partner in on that. And the idea there was, can I start this person off with a very low budget and grow that to where they can make, between $5,000 and $10,000 a month in profit. And we did a really good job the very first year, which was last year was our full year on that. And the products there are only around $15, which goes against my rules. My rules is usually 20 to 45, and making about $5 to $7 profit per unit. That one there has probably right now about 18 to 20 SKUs. And that one last year did 100,000 in revenue total for the year at a 33% margin. And that one there, I literally spend less than, again, an hour a day. So that one there is, again, that's doing something. I partnered also with my good friend Dom Sugar in an open brand concept. He's got many brands, but he said, he was thinking about doing an open brand. I said that would be good also, because then I can be involved. I can still have my hands in it and work on the marketing side of things, and maybe email list building, funnel building, all that stuff that I'm really passionate about. That's kind of like my thing. I like that stuff a lot. So he agreed. And so now we're working on stuff there. And I think that one there currently has like 15 to 20 SKUs, and minus fourth quarter, because fourth quarter was crazy. I think over like 90,000 in revenue. Awesome. But I think right now, I think he told me the last update was like 30 to 35. And that was also because we ran out of one of the top sellers. So that one's doing well. I'm excited about that, because the open brand concept is really how you can take multiple kinds of products, multiple types of markets, and then merge them into one account. And I wanted to experiment with that anyway. And he had already started it. So I said, if I come on and help you with the marketing and stuff, then we can partner on that. So that's what we've done there. And then the most recent one, this one I'm really super, super excited about. And that one is a brand with a front person that will be doing all of the face on video, on blog, on all different social media platforms, and going to be the driving force behind the brand. And then I'll be the marketing guy behind the brand and all of that stuff. And that'll be a 50-50 partner on that. And that one we're probably 3 weeks away from launching 2 products. And we've got 3 other ones in pre-production. So just to kind of throw all that stuff out there. So that's all that stuff. And on top of that, I have a podcast, which you guys are listening to now. And that publishes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I have training, and I have affiliate deals that I work with partners on that stuff. And that brings in revenue as well. So there's a lot of different things going on for revenue.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. And just to make sure I have my count right here. So you have essentially four brands that you are involved in on the, okay. And this last one, the one that's about to launch, you said it was about 2 to 3 weeks out. Yeah. And you can be launching with 2 products. So you went and found a friend or a colleague or a partner that is going to be kind of doing all the social media face it was kind ambassador type stuff. Exactly.
I was basically kind of like seeing what this person was doing from afar. And they were doing it for years, but I felt like they were doing a poor job as far as how much more potential they had, and they didn't realize it. So I seen an opportunity there, and then that's where it was kind of like, hey, do you mind if we talk about this? And of course they said, well, sure. What do you got? And then I kind of went through the plan of what I seen, and that person was excited because now they can do what they love to do and not do what they don't love doing, which is marketing and funnel building and list building and all that stuff. And it's just, to me, it's the perfect marriage in a sense in a relationship for a business, because I don't have time to do all that other stuff, nor do I want to do that stuff because I'm involved in so many other things. I'm able to work on things that I really enjoy. And the other cool thing is I get to kind of report on this whole, almost like a case study, right? So I get to kind of show like the play by play, like, okay, so phase one of this brand and how it came about. And then from there, what we're doing to find what products we want, and then how are we going to get the word out, and then how are we going to launch them, what platforms, how did we build the list, like we built a list in this brand already without even having products. Like we built a list of over 5,000 people in this market of raving fans that I know are going to be ready and lined up to buy our first product. We actually had a Kindle book written already for this market, and we launched that Kindle book and we drove it to almost the top 100 in all of free Kindle books for 3 days, just because we had an email list of 5,000 people. Wow. Yeah, so I'm just super excited about it. But yeah, that's kind of how it kind of came about. It was like I seen, and anyone that sees someone, like you might be at a party, you might be just online, you might see someone that's doing really good things or has a huge following, but they're not monetizing it or they have no idea how to do it. And then that's a great way for you to step in and go, let me help you with this. And if I do you want to be 50-50 partners? Like that's, to me, that's like a huge asset for you, because if you can do that, you're going to separate yourself amongst your competition like crazy. Because, you're able to build an audience, a loyal audience, a following that will basically buy anything that you put out or recommend it to other people. Like whether they buy or not, they're going to recommend. I've had people that say, Scott, I don't need your information because I'm not into that. I'm into something else, but I found your podcast and I loved it, because I just like listening to you. But I'm going to recommend you to 3 of my friends. You know what I mean? Like that's how it works. You build that audience and then they'll help to promote you and your stuff.
Wow, that's awesome. So this person that's going to be the kind of the face man of this company or woman, you found them just completely just like by looking at social media, or is this someone you actually knew personally?
Yeah.
Or did you just see their content online? How'd that work?
Yeah, well, I basically found them through my move. And as I was moving, I kind of started to create a relationship, because I was moving, for those of you that don't know, I moved from upstate New York to South Carolina. And during that move, we had a lot of back and forth and stuff and a lot of communications with people here. And then just one thing led to another. A person that was helping us with the move, I actually struck up that conversation, because then I think maybe I seen that they posted something about the area, or about maybe how to get through a move or something like that. I forget, but and then that turned into a communication online, and then into a Skype call, and then to video chats and all that stuff. So that's kind of how it led. So it did. If I never was going to move to South Carolina, I probably never would have found that connection. So again, one of those things, right? Like. And if you go back and listen to my episode 300, you see every single thing that I've done has led me to where I am because of a certain situation or a moment that had happened. So it's pretty awesome to kind of go back and retrace your steps.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You always got to have your eyes open. You never know when those opportunities are going to present themselves.
Totally.
So how long would you say at this point that you spend daily working?
Okay. Again, it depends on what you classify as work. I really don't feel like what I'm doing is work. I love doing this stuff. Like you and I right now, this is technically work for me, right? I'm not spending time with my family. This is work, right? But
we'll consider, for the sake of this, the TAS podcast work. Yeah, the
TAS podcast, very simple. I schedule that out. So basically on Mondays is kind of like my prep day for my Tuesday, which is themed. I theme my days. So my Tuesday is really my record day. Now today we're doing an interview on a Wednesday, and that's usually what I'll leave that day open for is like, and I say the day, it's usually between 9 and noon is my block of time. And I'll take breaks. I just got back from a walk before I got on with you that I took a walk. And while I was on that walk, I did a Periscope. So I took my Periscope followers with me on a walk, and we talked about sponsored ads and hijackers and all kinds of stuff, right? But I took them on a walk with me because I wanted to get exercise and I wanted to kind of get ready for this interview. Yeah, I mean, I guess work for me, and that's what some people say, like, when you retire, what do you, I'm like, I'm retired, man. This is what I'm going to do when I'm retired. I'm going to travel. I'm going to speak. I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to help people. I'm going to hopefully inspire even young kids. Like my son is already talking, like he wants to eventually help young kids that don't think that they can be successful because they don't have the skill set or whatever. Like so many cool things that I can see happening in the future that retirement for me is just more fun for doing what I'm already doing. Just spreading it even further and building more, brands and helping people build brands and all that stuff. So, yeah, I would say work. How much time do I work? It's really hard to say, but I do schedule out that time that I don't do anything other than focus on time with the family or volleyball or, if my daughter's visiting, my 21-year-old just visited with her fiance, and I blocked out pretty much everything for those 3 days. So I didn't do anything for those 3 days. I mean, a couple emails here and there, but pretty much anything like this I didn't do. I kind of batched all my stuff so I was prepared before they got in town.
Oh, that's awesome. So it kind of varies. And
Yep.
If you were to remove things like podcasting or periscoping or, that kind of stuff, if you're talking about just maybe dealing with your supplier or dealing with a VA or something,
Yeah.
It sounds like it's only maybe a couple hours.
Yeah, if that. I mean, honestly, I have a meeting. See, now I've got someone that I'm working in that test brand that I said that I helped him get set up, and now he's kind of running that. And I'm kind of like the advisor in a sense. I meet with him on Mondays, every Monday at 11 o'clock. And we go over what happened the week before and what we have coming up. And now he does a lot of that reaching out to the suppliers, the sourcing and stuff like that. So that kind of took that off my plate. So really it's about a meeting. So really I'll sit down, I'll have a meeting for an hour, and I'll discuss anything that he has for me that I need to address in order for him to move forward. So that's really it. And then right now I'm kind of going through this whole sponsored ads or sponsored product ads stuff. And we just kind of did this whole week is themed around, actually the time that this is recording, it won't be, but we're doing a whole week where we're talking about sponsored ads and for Amazon. So I've been really consumed in that. So I've been in my account more, just playing and just setting up new campaigns and seeing what happens and looking at my old data and pulling in search term reports and stuff like that. So this week is actually more than usual, but even still at that, no more than an hour. Really.
That's
seriously.
awesome. I want people, and if I could be so bold, even the TAS community,
Yeah.
just to realize, just how little time, in the course of, a whole 24-hour day, how little time is actually needed to run, one of these businesses. It's not an 18-hour a day hustle.
No.
And I think that's something that a lot of people, they think that if they're going to start a side business, even an online business, and especially a physical products business where you're dealing with suppliers and shipping and all that stuff, that it's going to be this like 10, 12, 14-hour thing all day, every day, weekends. And it's just not. It's just not.
And I think, though, in the beginning stages, when you're first getting your brand going, it will take more time. Like that's
Absolutely.
Normal, right? Like your product research is going to take more time. Your sourcing to find the right suppliers is going to take time. Communicating with maybe a freight forwarder, going to take a little bit more time. But once you've been through it, and once that product or products are up, now it's a matter of maintaining.
Right.
And then maybe thinking about the next suite of products. But honestly, when you do create like a brand, the next products become easier to find because then you're just going to launch relevant products to that brand. The open brand is a little bit tougher for us. I don't even say tougher. It makes it a little bit looser, but it's where you could launch new products every single day because it's an open brand. It's multiple different types of markets. But our whole philosophy there is really how can we test 5 different markets all at once and see the one that sticks really well and then go really deep with that one. That's really the plan moving forward. Right.
And so for the workload, it's really, I agree, it's kind of more front loaded.
No, totally.
A lot of that is learning the process, right?
Yep. And you're learning
tools.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And again, you're learning though. I think we should highlight that. I mean, what people don't realize is like they'll launch a product and it might not do as well as they did. But what did you learn through that process? You learned how to source a product. You learned how to get it here. You learned about customs. You learned about packaging. You learned about FNSQs and UPCs, and you learned about all that stuff. You've been through it now. So now the next one's going to be a whole lot easier. You know?
Yep. I totally agree.
Yeah,
totally agree. So before we kind of branch off from this, I just have one more question about that. And it's to kind of tell everyone how you built that first FBA brand from nothing. You know, this was going back a few years, right? So it's just a concept in your head, maybe, or maybe even before that concept. How'd you build that from just an idea into what it is today?
I was pretty much where everyone is right now that's starting. Like I had no idea. Actually, the first product I was thinking about launching, I was literally like really, really close to launching it, and I changed gears because I wanted to try to go into a brand or a market that I was interested in, right? That I thought that I'd be interested in the future. Now, does that mean that I have to be that way now? No. The person that maybe I'm building the brand with, I want them to be totally like passionate about it maybe, because then they're going to be able to drive that business with content. I think if you can build a business around content, I think that's always like the best thing that you can do for long-term and even exiting if you ever want to. That's a whole nother topic. But I started where everyone did, and I really didn't know what direction I wanted to go. And then I settled on it. And then from there, I did it the hard way though. They didn't have tools like Jungle Scout. So I basically went out and I looked at, the first page of results for this one product. And then I took a spreadsheet and I took all the ASINs and I copied them in, or the links, so I could go back to them every day. And then I would look at the BSR, and then I would look at the reviews. I'd look at, how many sales I estimated they were making. And that I would do by using the 999 trick, which is basically just seeing how much inventory they had in from one day to the next. And then I would just record that stuff and look at it for 7 to 14 days. And that's what I did. And then I launched the product very similar to how I do it today, with the exception that I think I gave away 100 units when I first launched that. And now I literally don't even do that. I'll allow 100 units for promotions, but I won't give them away. It'll be more like a discount, or maybe I'll just drive a lot of pay-per-click to them really, really fast. I wish I could make it sound like more intense, but it was literally like everything that I talk about. It's like I went out there and I looked at a market that I knew wasn't trending, down. It was trending like even or up. And I knew it was going to be around for a long time. And then it was something that people needed, and it was something that people wanted, and it was going to better their life. And so I felt good about it. Now, again, if I was to go back and pick that product over, I probably wouldn't pick that product. I just, and I guess the next question would be, well, why? Well, because it's an easy product for a lot of people to source. So because of that, I either have to find a way to make it more unique, or I have to, when I go looking for it, it's harder for me to find. And I think that's a tip for anyone. If you can go on Alibaba and find that exact product, and all you're going to do is take that product and then resell it, that's probably a bad sign, because the next person's going to be able to do the same thing. And in this new brand that we're working with, we're running into right now, it's hard to find certain manufacturers that will build what we want them to build. But once we get it, we're going to be the only ones there basically that's going to sell it. And if you want to sell it, it's going to take you a lot of work to find out how to make it all work. So I would say in the beginning, it was a little bit like me just kind of like, let's just see what happens. And then I just kind of led down that path. Second product I launched wasn't successful at all. It only, I think, was at the highest, it might have sold like 5 a day. And then it might have dwindled down to like 3 a day. And then I ended up liquidating it. And then I just got out from under it. It wasn't a huge deal. And then the third product had 4 SKUs. And that one still sells today on a regular basis. And that one did well. And then I've got another product in there that we dabbled in the supplement world. And then that one there, we're still selling about 5 a day, but it's one I'm probably going to phase out. I'm not excited about it. And I'm also seeing that it's going to be a huge uphill battle to stay on top. And I don't really have a brand. Like when I decided to get into that brand, I had a guy that I thought was going to help drive that brand, and that fell through. So one of those things, you know what I mean? So I learned from it. I'm still making money. I'm making about I don't know, 13, 14 bucks a sale, and I sell about 5 a day on a regular basis, I'm going to liquidate them once they're done, and we'll move on, just recoup the money.
Wow. Okay. So that's, I mean, it is just like you described.
Yeah.
Just follow the process, right?
just follow the process. And, some people will say, well, wasn't it easier back then? Yeah, it was a little bit easier, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible now. It just means you have to just do a little bit more digging, a little bit deeper, and try to make the product better. Like that's the whole secret, right? Read the reviews of what people are saying that they wish it had or that it wish it did, and make yours do that, and then sell against your competitors. Like it's that simple. And have good packaging. I think packaging is another thing that I would do differently if I was to launch over from scratch. Back in the day, I think I would have spent more on packaging. And the reason is because then again, it makes your product look more legit. It looks like it came off the shelf, and if someone wants to give it away as a gift, it's possible. It's not just coming in a plastic bag.
Right. Yeah. And so, I agree. I think the biggest thing out of everything you just described is not picking something that is right up front on the Alibaba homepage.
Yep.
Yep. Picking something that's very, very difficult to find a supplier to build. Yeah, definitely.
But that doesn't mean that you can't look at that one product that's similar to your product or that is related. And then from you to say, okay, I know they make these types of products. Maybe they'll make the thing I want. And then that'll lead you to that factory that then you can have your customized thing made. It's again, for you just to know that that company makes garlic presses. They might make, this certain kitchen device that you want. Right? But it's not on Alibaba.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it leads you to the supplier.
Okay. So you've got, you're obviously a subject matter expert in this area, at least what I would consider a subject matter expert. You've been doing this for so long. How has being a parent impacted not just this business, but all the businesses that you've grown from scratch?
Okay, so let me just understand the question. So how has been a parent, how has that impacted like my decisions for starting businesses and stuff?
I would say decisions, your ability to flirt with risk financially, energy wise.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so number one, to me, once I left my father's business when I was in the construction business with him, worked there for about 8 years, working 60 plus hours. That's what actually got me wanting to create my own business because I wanted my own schedule. And he had a partner. It was an ugly marriage. It was terrible. And I also learned a lot about business, and I also learned that I didn't want to have a partner. But anyway, basically what I wanted to do was create a lifestyle business. So because of that, it made me see, that my kids are very important to me. I want to spend time with them. So how can I take and create a time schedule that fits around that? So what would that look like? Well, if I'm a photographer, I'm able to create my own schedule. I can say we only take sessions at 9 o'clock in the morning because we drop the kids off at 8, and then we're good up till 2 o'clock. And then at, between 2 and 5 or 6, we don't do anything. And then from 6 to 7, we might do one session outside because the lighting was perfect at that time. You know what I mean? Like, so that was kind of how we structured that. So having kids, it made us have to figure out a schedule, and then we built everything around that. So to me, that's what really got me, kind of like figuring out the schedule thing and the lifestyle. As far as taking risk, like once I started, it was funny because when I left my father's business, I think I had maybe about $5,000 in the bank. That was it. So like I was literally like, you know what? I'm just going for it. But we had already built our photography business on the side. We were doing a little side hustle, and we knew that we were approaching. I left in November, and we were approaching our busy season, which was Christmas, because that's when everyone comes for family photos and all that stuff. And so I was taking a risk because I knew I was leaving. And I knew my father wanted to leave too. He wanted to kind of get out of that business. So I knew that I was going to kind of relieve a little bit of pressure from him. But from there, it was scary, right? I'm like, what do I do, man? I'm like, what if this thing doesn't work? I got 5,000 in the bank. I think we're going to get, I think we've got enough customers to help us get through. And we did. But I always had the backup little safety net that if it doesn't work, I'll just go back and I'll just, not to my father's business, but I'll just go do some construction. There's always work to be done there. I was a good contractor. I knew all facets of the business. So I could go remodel a kitchen. I could go do a bathroom over. I could go do a deck, whatever. I could make money. So the risk wasn't really there. I was a little nervous just because I didn't want to have to do that. But it wasn't really like I was like losing sleep over it. I was excited because I was going to be able to work from home. And I think that was the most exciting thing. So I think to answer your question, I think I did is the kids really motivated me to want to create my own schedule, and the risk side of things, to me, there was no option. So there wasn't really risk because I had a backup plan.
So how many kids did you have at the time when you left your construction business? 2.
My son was only 2 and my daughter was 4, I think. I think they're 2 years apart. Yeah. No, 3 years. About 2.5 years apart. So they were young. And I think my son actually, was he 2? Yeah, he was just about 2. So it was young. Yeah. And I think it's funny too, even looking back at it, when we would finish our photography fourth quarter, like all of our sessions that we would take, normally we would probably have about 10 to 12,000 in the bank to carry us through the next month or two because, business slowed down after that because people were done to get their pictures taken. And we thought we were living large. We were like, this is awesome. Like we knocked this all out. We had our lifestyle business. We knocked all this work out. People are happy. They got their pictures for Christmas. They're giving it away as gifts. And now we get to basically just kind of hang loose. And again, I mean, hang loose. We were still marketing our business and still updating our website and figuring out ways that we can maybe get, customers in before Easter and stuff like that. But we didn't have to, right? We had a little bit of cushion in the bank, but you still had that thought of, well, what if we don't get customers coming back in for Easter? Well, that 10 grand is only gonna last so long.
Right. So you've got 2 kids.
Yep.
You've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old,
yep.
and you've got enough money to get you through a couple months after Christmas.
Yep.
This is you and your wife, both
yep.
of you, your primary source of income.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So how did you deal with that? At night when you're tucking in your kids and you're wondering, oh man, if I don't get any clients, what are we going to do in 3 months?
Yeah, you try not to think about that, but in the same breath, as an entrepreneur, I'm always thinking of ways that I can supplement my income, even back then. So going back to that day, and I've talked about this on episode 300, but I'll revisit it. I started dabbling on eBay. I started to we seen that they were selling things on eBay, things that little trinkety things and stuff. And I think we put up something that we had laying around the house and it sold. And that was like, holy crap, this thing works. You can actually sell stuff online. And my wife was at the Christmas tree shop. There's a Christmas tree shop. I don't know if they have them where you are, but it's they do. Yeah, they don't sell just Christmas stuff. It's just like a whole barrage of just different stuff. And they had these little wooden cedar bridges. They were about 4-foot bridges that people would put in their gardens. And we seen they were you could purchase them for $25. They were selling on eBay for $140. So we ended up buying 2 of them. We sold them literally in 3 days. And then we went back and bought 20 more. And at the time, just to mention too, we were putting our kids through private school because we wanted them to go to a private school because our school system where we were living wasn't the best. So we put them in private school. So that was costing us. So this actually helped supplement our private schooling to take a little bit of that weight off of us. And so then after that, we just kind of tried to keep doing that. I think we did that for a good 6 months, and we just kept buying 10 more, 15 more. And then eventually other people started doing it and drove the price down. And then people were selling it for $50. And then we just stopped doing it. But then again, being an entrepreneur, I'm like, what other things do my customers want in the photography space? They keep asking me for video transfers or doing 50th wedding anniversaries or doing slideshows for that or a graduation or old 8mm film transfers. So I'm like, maybe I should start offering this service. So what did I do? I started offering the service. And then I turned that into a side revenue. I actually had a car lettered. With our video transfer name on it, by our brand. So we basically had our main brand, and this was a sub brand off of our main brand. And I drove that thing all around. I'd get stopped in the parking lot when I was getting groceries. Hey, do you transfer this kind of stuff? I was like, yep, I do. Here's a card. And then I'd get business that way. I'd go to home shows, and I'd set up a little shop there with my video transfer stuff. And I knew nothing about it. I just knew I was in that business and my customers wanted it. It was another extension of our photography. And that really did well. I think that probably did $40,000, $50,000 a year once I got that thing rolling. But here's the side thing. And, maybe your audience probably doesn't know. My audience probably already does know. But then I started seeing that there was accessories being built for this business that I needed. And one of them was a transfer station to transfer old film, reel-to-reel film. And I bought one. It cost $1,200, $1,500 at the time. And I noticed all it was like a reconditioned old film unit that was just converted to process this type of film. And so I kind of reverse engineered it, and I started building them and selling them on eBay for like $900. And so I would build 1 or 2 of those a week. And I think I paid maybe $150, $200 for all the parts to make it happen. But again, having my construction background helped me with that because I knew how to kind of put things together and figure things out like that. So, and that there, and I know the number on that one there, that the first year that I started doing that, we generated about $50,000 in sales on eBay.
Wow. It was that, I have to ask, that when you, I have so many questions.
Yeah. Go ahead. That's fine.
So, I mean, all right. You had a couple of months between Christmas and maybe Easter timeframe. You had obviously some excess time to think about ways to generate income, and you maybe came up with some of these things like selling on eBay and doing some other stuff and trying to find other sources of income through your photography business. Yeah. When did this reel-to-reel transfer thing happen? When did you build those and sell those?
Yeah, that was probably about when I was getting into the 8mm. I started with doing slideshows. I started just taking people's pictures, 4x6s or 3x5s, and I'd scan them and then put them into a slideshow, put music and transitions and all that stuff. And then I started looking into how to transfer 8mm film because I had people ask about it. And I noticed a company near us was doing it, and they were pretty successful in doing that, and they were charging so much a foot to transfer that film. And then I started looking for that device. And then once I started looking for that device and I bought it, and I was expecting it to be like a new machine from like a factory, and all it was a reconditioned thing that someone bought and modified. And I'm like, all right, well, I can do this. Let me build one and see if I can actually build one and see if it works. And then if it does, I'll try to sell one on eBay. And that was it, like that. And then it was game over. And then I was just like telling my wife, I'm like, I'll build one of these a week, and we'll make an extra $600 a week, And
that's awesome.
And that's basically what I did. And funny story on that, the film, the transfer place that was my competitor actually reached out to me and then had me start transferring their film for them. So I did all of their 8mm film now. So then they would call me once a week. I'd go pick up a big giant box with a whole bunch of jobs, and then I would transfer them. I'd give them a discount, and then they would upcharge their customer, and they might make, I might charge 25 cents a foot. They would charge, I would charge them, 10 or whatever,
That's awesome. So, okay, so this is going on for some period of time, years, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We were probably doing that for at least seven solid years. Yeah, 5 to 7, 7 years.
So this is a really good segue into my next question. Sure. So your wife and yourself, neither one of you are working, a traditional 9-to-5 job at this point. Your kids are getting older, and they're kind of, around, and you're around, and how did being an entrepreneur and finding all these different sources of income and running your own business or businesses, how did your kids take to that? And how did being an entrepreneur affect or impact the family dynamics at home?
Well, it was pretty cool actually how it all kind of went down now that I look back at it, but because now it's starting to actually show itself. Like, you don't realize when a kid, we all know kids listen. Right? They listen to everything we say. We don't even realize that what we're saying, and we're influencing them every single day. Like every day we're influencing them in some way, good or bad. Right? So that's why you got to be careful. Even growing up, my father never swore in front of me. And my uncle used to swear in front of us kids all the time. And I thought my uncle was cool because he swore in front of me, but my father never did. Now that I look back, and I don't swear in front of my kids, at least now my older kids, will maybe exchange a few fun words here and there. But my 9-year-old, no, and I just think there's a time for that. And so I've kind of learned that from my father that, you should, kind of keep that down. To show yourself as an example. But now that we've kind of been through the cycle already a couple times, my 18-year-old and my 21-year-old, it's really interesting to see how they're doing. My daughter, who's 21, she didn't want to go to college, and I didn't go to college. So it was kind of like, well, what do I do? I know it's kind of like in society, it's the right thing to do, but do I make her go to college? And she just fought us on it a little bit. Didn't fight us, but she was kind of resisting it and not really wanting to do that. So we started to kind of explore, like, what do you want to do? And she was always into hair and makeup and all that stuff. So we started looking into Paul Mitchell School, which was near us at the time. And we sent her to Paul Mitchell School. It was a 10-month program. And then they get her trained, and then they send her off on her way. Well, most students leave there and they go work at like Express Hair Place or Sam's Cut or something like that. Well, she kind of took from our advice, as far as us talking about like in photography, like you want to be a middle to an upper tier. You don't want to go after the low, the low tier, because then you're going to be the Walmarts and, the Sears of photography. You don't want to be that in that. So where can you make a good living as a hairdresser or as, a makeup artist or anything like that? And it's weddings. So she basically went out there and built herself a nice little business. And I think her first year, she did just about $40,000 in sales, doing basically bridal, like updos and all these different hairstyles and makeup and bridal parties and all that stuff, and built her business from scratch, from using social media and using building a little email list and doing Facebook ads and all that stuff that she's seen and heard from just casual conversations that I had with my wife. Right.
Wow.
So us talking in the minivan, back in the day, like driving to an event, and I'm talking about something that I'm working on as we're in the car, they're listening, right? Even though I think that they might not be interested, they're still listening. It's funny, my 9-year-old just the other day, because we've been talking a lot about retail arbitrage lately, because we have our 1K fast track class. And my daughter, Alexis, who is the older daughter, the 21-year-old, she's actually doing retail arb right now as a side hustle. And they're doing really well, her and her fiance. And my youngest daughter, she picked up something in the store. She goes, "Dad, what do you think? Could we retail arb this?" And I'm like, okay, well, she's listening, right? So, you know what I mean? Like, I just think that people need to understand that what you're doing is also educating and giving them a life lesson through your good times and your bad times. My son, he really made me proud the other day, because he was talking to a friend of his that was struggling with what to do. And he started talking about, don't worry about where you're going to go right now. Just worry about creating your story. And the story will take you to where you want to go, because later you'll be able to share that and help people. And I'm thinking, well, where did he hear that? And now he's talking about he just talked the other day about, like when I get older, it was funny. We just had a heartfelt conversation the other day, because he's kind of struggling. He's in college. He's not struggling, with grades. He's just struggling with where he wants to be, what he wants to do. And he came out and he goes, "Dad, I just, when I get older, I want to be able to do what you did. I want to be able to coach my son or my daughter's team. I want to be able to go to all those events. I want to be able to work from home when I want to. I want to be able to have that schedule." And I'm like, "Oh, so you're saying I did a pretty good job?" He goes, "Yeah, I think I would love to be like you." And I was like, it kind of choked me up a little bit to hear that. I'm like, damn, that's pretty good, And so he right now, he's like, I want to be able to work on something that I'm excited about. And he's into basketball and he's into sneakers and all that stuff. So I'm like, go for it, man. Just go out there and just start creating some really good, resources or content around that space. And eventually, something will come from that. And just understand that you're investing in the process. You're not investing necessarily in making money right now. And he gets it. He gets it. It's not about making $1 million in 2 years. It's about, getting out there, getting experience, getting results. And then from there, if you want to share them, then everything will come back to you. And just doing something that you're really excited about. So yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, it's really starting to come full circle right now, where I'm starting to see all different aspects of it now that they're kind of getting out there in the world.
That's awesome. Do you think that if you stayed either in your old construction business with your dad, or even if you went back to construction, after that photography venture, do you think that your children would be who they are today?
I really don't. I mean, you can't say for sure. But I really don't, because I don't think we would have been talking necessarily about that. If anything, they would have been hearing about partnerships and us complaining about, this worker, because a lot of our problems in that business, in the construction business, was it was my father and his partner, and then our families getting involved. So now all of a sudden you got, well, this person is, just started working and they're making the same that this person's making, and this person gets to do this, but this person doesn't get to do this. This person wants more time off, and then we got to give this person time off. So I think that they would have heard all of those arguments about what we were complaining about versus what we're excited about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I truly do.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And also, the things about that you were saying about being home, at times of the day when most parents who work 9-to-5 jobs are not home. Yeah. And you're there to coach your kids soccer or basketball or whatever.
Yep.
That's one of my primary whys also is my son plays hockey, and I can coach at night. I can coach on the weekends. I can't coach at 4:30 practice every single day. And, that's something that I absolutely want to be around for as much as possible. And I know that that's a huge component for a lot of people, a huge, reason for them, a huge why, one of the many whys. So that's really awesome. And
No,
I'm really happy for your kids. That's really insightful stuff that your son said. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, it was amazing, and I was blown away. I actually got goosebumps when he told me a few. I mean, he elaborated even deeper, and obviously we don't have time to go into that story, but it was just very, very touching, and it showed me he was a very mature kid for his age. A lot of kids his age are going out and they want to hit the next party, and he's talking about like ways that he can get started and start his story now on the right track, and it was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Listen, I know this interview is getting a little long. We're up to about an hour. Honestly, I could talk to you all day. You're such a cool guy. But I just have a couple more questions.
Sure.
What would you say was the hardest part about making that leap from your construction job to being an entrepreneur?
I mean, honestly, even looking back at it wasn't like a hard thing. I think it was, number one, I felt a little bit like I was leaving my father. But he told me it was cool. Like him and I had a lot of conversations about me wanting to leave, and he was happy for me. And I think also because then it took pressure off of him to not have to try to keep that business afloat because of me. If you think about it, he had to have pressure on him to say, I need to keep this business running so my son's, family is taken care of. And that's got to be a burden. So that was one thing. I just didn't want to let him down and leave him there, which he told me, like, Scott, go, man, it's good. And then literally 3 months later, him and his partner parted ways. So it literally, after I left, it kind of gave him the okay to leave. So I would say the hardest part for me was that, just feeling like, am I going to be able to, or is he going to be cool with it? And then the other part is am I really going to be able to make this work? Because part of me leaving, before we even started that photography business, I sat down with my wife and I'm like, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to keep up at this pace. I'm going 60 plus hours a week. I built a house in 11 months on the side while I was working 60 plus hours a week. And that's when I just had my daughter. And I just said to her, I'm like, there's got to be a better way. I don't see any growth potential as far as unless I can own the business one day, which if I did, do I really want it? I don't know. You know what I mean? What is there? There's some company trucks and there's some debt. You know what I mean? There's a lot of debt in the business for a product that needs to be purchased and, problems and partnerships and all that stuff. So I think the hardest part though is just believing in myself that I could do something other than be a contractor. And I think we semi-proved it when we did it part-time in the photography space, but I didn't really know if it was going to be enough to support us. But I had that safety net in place that I could always do side work if I had to. But I think that would be the hardest part. And in any business, it's always the doubt of the unknown, right? It's always the uncertainty. I've talked about this. Starting the podcast was kind of like, I want to start this thing, but is anybody even going to listen? Am I wasting my time? Am I really going to be able to help people? Does anybody care? Now, if I never did that, I wouldn't be here talking to you, and I wouldn't be impacting thousands of people through the podcast. The FBA business, I wouldn't have did that unless I took a chance and said, let me give this thing a shot and see what happens. And having my wife coach me and basically say, through the times that I'm doubting myself, to be the one to say, no, you got this. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? So I had a good cheerleader. My wife's a huge supporter in what I do and what we do. So I think the biggest thing is just always the doubt and the unknown, but I always create those little safety nets. It's kind of like, well, if it doesn't work, then this, what's the worst that's going to happen? I still got my family, I still got my wife. I've still got, my support group, of people, so, I think it's always the uncertainty of the unknown. I think that's the biggest thing for me and a lot of people.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. So I just have one more question.
Okay.
And this is a perfect segue for that.
Okay.
So I want you to imagine yourself for a second at a podium or on a stage or something. You're in front of a vast room, this huge room, and full of parents, right? People who are out there, they're dying to pursue their entrepreneurial path and create the lifestyle that they really, really want. Basically do what you were able to successfully do. And they feel like they can't because of the energy, time, finance, responsibilities, all the things that come with being a parent, working. They're all looking up at you, Scott, right? They're looking for wisdom.
I'm nervous, man. You're making me nervous.
Okay. No, that's okay. You're allowed to be nervous. You're allowed to be nervous. What would you tell them?
Yeah, what would I tell them? Okay, I did think about this a little bit because I wanted to kind of give the best advice that I could give. And I think the very first thing that I would say is number one thing is you need to establish your why. Before you can do anything, you have to know what you're doing it for, right? So before you can ever figure out a plan to make that happen, you got to understand the why. So I would take time. I would tell that audience, listen, go take a pad of paper and write a list of why you want, or what you want as far as what you want to do this for. Like, who is it for? What is the experience? What is the lifestyle? Like, what is it? Like, create that perfect day, that perfect week, that perfect month. If you could create that, and you can snap your fingers and it would happen, what would that be and why? Why would that? A lot of people, they start off with, I want to make $1 million. Why? Why do you want to make $1 million? Like, so $1 million is going to make you happy. Why? Right? And then they're going to say, well, because I wouldn't have to work. Okay. Why would not working be good for you? Well, because I could spend more time with my family. Good. What do you want to do with your family? I want to go on vacation at least once a year. Where? I want to go to Florida and visit my family. Cool. What do you want to do when you're at Florida? Like, so go deep inside and ask yourself questions upon questions to really get a clear picture of why you're doing it. And then have pictures. And I know that sounds kind of woo-woo-y, but it's kind of like have pictures of your family or the why that you're trying to achieve to remind you on a regular basis. Because a lot of times you're going to get involved with this stuff and you're going to get discouraged, and then you're going to say, why do I do this? You're going to go, oh, I remember why. This is why, right? So to me, that's a big one. And a lot of people, they kind of glaze over that because, they don't think that's important. They think about, okay, give me the plan to get to making, $10,000 a month. Like, that's what I want, because that's going to make my life perfect. And let me just tell you, when you do get there, you're going to also find there's another struggle awaiting for you, or there's another thing you're going to strive for. It doesn't matter what level you get to. You're always going to have struggles. You're always going to have the next thing. You're always going to say, okay, once I get this one task done, I'll be able to relax. And the thing is, if you don't allow yourself to relax, you won't relax. It's just the way it works. But anyway, so I would say that. And then I would say the other thing is now figure out what's the number, okay? What's the number, financial number that you need to live your life or that life that you created, okay? So what is that number? Like right now you might say, man, if I could take home $2,000 a week, I mean, that's, $8,000 a month. That's decent wage. Like if that's what it is, okay, cool. Now we got it, right? Now we've got that number, right? Or let's make it easy. $1,000 a week, that's $52,000 a year. So I want to make $52,000. That would make my life easy, and I could then enjoy my life and go after my why and just really have a great life. Cool. Now we know that number. So now we got to create a plan to go and get that number, right? So there's a couple of different vehicles that you can do this. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. Now, the way that we're talking about here, because it's my show and your show, people may know about Amazon and FBA and all that stuff, and maybe not. But I would say use Amazon FBA, and FBA is fulfilled by Amazon, depending on who's listening to this that might not know what that is. And that's where you're allowing Amazon to do a lot of the work for you. They're doing all of the fulfillment, all of the customer service, all of the refunds, all of that stuff they're doing. So this way here, you don't have to. A lot of people want to start a brand new website because they have a great idea for a product or a brand, but it takes a lot of work to get that stuff set up, to get traffic, to get all that stuff. I like to tap into existing platforms or markets. So this way here, we can kind of cut down on that time. So I would use Amazon FBA. And I would, if you don't want to use FBA or as far as your own private label product, then I would do retail arbitrage. Right now, literally, we had a 1K fast track group go through, 50 people went through, and it was a 6-week training. The first week we had them do a pre-challenge, which was basically go through your house and find anything that you have laying around that you are not going to use, that you're going to throw out or that you're going to donate. And I want you to sell it or list it on eBay tomorrow. And we did that, and within 1 week we had $3,500 generated. And basically you got to say that's pretty much profit because these people already own the product, right?
Yeah.
So we were able to kickstart that. So if anybody's out there, like the first thing is just do that. You're going to learn the eBay platform. You're going to also get a little bit of that taste of what it feels like to sell something online. And then I would then graduate to Amazon FBA. I would take retail arbitrage stuff. I would buy stuff low and sell it high, find stuff that's in off clearance or, on sale, really deep discounts. And then I would resell that on Amazon. And then that way there, again, you're gonna get your feet wet in the Amazon space, and then you can graduate to private labeling, which is really branding your own products. The other thing to do is, depending on your skill set or your expertise, you might be able to, create your own personal brand. Like if you're someone right now that's a coach and you coach, basketball and you're a gym coach, maybe what you need to do is start creating training for coaches, right? So a lot of people don't realize that things that they're doing right now, they're good. There was a guy I was at a picnic over the summer, and he just retired. He was a gym teacher, a phys ed teacher for 25 years, and he coached at high level baseball, and he had training camps every single summer. The thing is, he wasn't selling anything online. I'm like, do you realize you could film one of your workshops and then you can turn that into a product, and then you can sell accessories, you can sell like hitting instructions and different devices to help you with your hitting or pitching or anything like that. So again, if you're one of these people that already has like a skill set that you aren't taking advantage of, I would do that. I'd start a personal brand around that. You could be a consultant. If right now you know a lot about a certain thing or a business, you can help other people, like I'm kind of doing with these other brands that I'm partnering with. You may already have something that you're good at that you don't even realize that you could help other people, and they'll be willing to pay you for it. So for me, I would just figure out what you could do that's the easiest to get started, to get revenue coming in the door, so you can start to get momentum. There's a book I love to refer to called The Compound Effect, and that one there's a great book because it's all about small little things to get momentum, and once you get momentum, it keeps you moving and it keeps you excited. So that's definitely one. So again, we have to create that plan though. So let's say it's $52,000. That's $1,000, a week. How do we do that? Well, if we're selling on Amazon, we have to then reverse that back. How many products do I have to sell a day? If I'm making $10 a day, or $10 per product, it's $100 a day. That'd be $3,000 a month. Like, okay, so where is the number? Like, I just got to do the math and then just reverse it back. So that's what I would do there. And again, now when you're doing this process, okay, now if you're doing this process and you start to get results, then eventually, if you want to, you could share what you've done with other people and possibly be a consultant or a teacher in that field. So again, everything you're doing right now is to get results to generate revenue so you can live that life that you want, so you can get your why. But again, in the future, maybe like my son, the first thing I told him is, listen, go out there and get results. Either for yourself or for someone else. Prove that what you're doing works. Generate revenue. And then after that's all done and you've done this consistently, well, now you can go out there and help other people with it. And that might turn into a personal brand. So everything we're doing, we're creating that story, but we're also creating the results that we can then share later if we choose to. And then I would create a schedule and I would stick to it. Like I would map all that out, the numbers, I would have everything so precise, even though it doesn't have to be 100% if we don't meet them, but I want a plan in place. And then I'm going to create a schedule, and I'm usually going to stick to 90-day sprints. So basically I'd break them up into even 30 days, but 90-day would be like the marker. So I would then I would reevaluate and I would adjust after 90 days. And those goals are going to change. A lot of people say, go make your 1 year and your 5 year goals. That's cool, but you got to be able to pivot and adjust through that process. You know what I mean? And then the last thing is, I would say, just believe in yourself. Just believe in yourself that you can do it, because there's no one out there that's got something over you, because you always have something, I'm sure, that you don't even realize that you're an expert at or that you're good at. If you're at a party and people are always asking you advice for something, that's probably a good sign that you know something that they don't know, right? And you just got to believe in yourself. I mean, I'm a perfect example of not believing in myself. I never would have thought that I could do a podcast because I'm not good at, English, right? As far as like speaking, like my wife's always like, man, I hope you don't say, a word that doesn't make sense. It doesn't really go there. And I'm like, you know what? If it does, it does. Like I have to take that away from me or else I won't speak. Right? So it's just, if people don't believe in themselves because they feel as though they don't sound smart, or they don't have the education, or they don't have the credits of saying that I was, this, certain, ideal like student at this certain college or whatever, like, don't worry about any of that stuff. Just go out there, believe in yourself, create all of the things I just went over. And from there, you can create any lifestyle that you want. Like, that's what I would say.
That is so incredibly powerful, Scott. There were so many different things to take away from that. And I think that when I air this, I'm going to recommend that my audience listen to that several times and maybe even take some notes. And I'm going to have some notes in the show notes of the podcast, because that was incredible, very inspiring, very motivational, and it's awesome coming from someone like you who's proved it over and over and over again. So
yeah, it's a simple formula. It really is, now that I look back at it. But if I was listening to this when I was 18, I would have been like, not me, you know. But again, I'm telling you that I was that 18-year-old kid that, you know, graduated, and I thought that I was just going to work for my father's company, build that with him, and then own that business, and I was going to be successful. And that didn't happen. But I learned a ton through this process. And as I keep learning, I'm going to learn things, you know, tomorrow that I'll be able to share the next day. It's like, but you have to be willing to go out there and learn and share, and also, you know, admit when things don't work, because they don't always work. So yeah, no, this has been fun, man. And again, I told you it was going to go in different directions, because that's how we roll here.
Yeah. For those who are curious, we probably only hit about 60% of the questions, but you know, we filled up more time than I expected to, and I actually think that this is leaps and bounds more valuable than if I just rattled off the questions and you provided, you know, a quick answer. So
it's awesome.
These are the best types of interviews. So
sure.
Scott, thank you so much for your time, man. I really, really, really appreciate this. I got so much out of this, and I know my audience and your audience actually are going to get a ton of value out of this as well. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, Gordon. And I thank you, and I wish you all the success in the future, and also keep me posted on everything that you're doing. It sounds like you're doing awesome and amazing, and you're having a really cool family, and you're enjoying that. And I think that's top-notch stuff right there. So I want to thank you, Gordon. And again, thanks for reaching out, because again, you know, people that take action, like you, Gordon, right? You left a voicemail, and then here we are, right? Like, who would have thought, right? Like, who would have thought that would have happened? But it did, and it just goes to show you that, you know, unless you actually do something, you'll never know the results. You got to get out there.
Never know. No, 2 years ago, I never thought I'd be on a podcast talking to you and airing it on my own podcast. So, no, it's a lot of fun. This is really cool, and we'll definitely reconnect in the future. And I'd love to have a conversation about, you know, where I'm going and where I've gone since this conversation, and likewise with your new brands and all the stuff that you got going on. Awesome.
Sounds great, Gordon. I want to thank you again, and this has been a lot of fun. So take care, and we'll talk to you soon, bud.
All right. Take care, Scott. Bye-bye.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and make this the shortest outro ever, because I know that was extremely longer than usual. Like, we went for like an hour and 15 minutes. So I'm going to definitely wrap this up. I did want to just remind you though, if you wanted to download, or if you wanted to grab the transcripts, some people want to download the transcripts to read later and maybe can't listen to the entire episode. You can head over to theamazingseller.com/339. This one will definitely probably go in the archives of one that I'll come back and revisit time and time again for people that ask this question. So if you want to grab them, go over and do that. And I did want to give a shout out to Gordon Light one more time. He has a website and a podcast that he's doing called FitSuccessfulDad.com. So definitely go check him out. A great guy, a family guy, reminds me a lot of me when I was a little bit younger than I am right now. He's got a small boy right now, you know, that he's enjoying, and a wife and all of that stuff. And I can totally remember those days like they were yesterday. So once again, I hope you guys got value from this. Let me know, comment on the blog, maybe just send me an email, heck, even send me a voicemail. I don't care. Go to the Ask Scott page and leave me one there. I just definitely want to hear how this resonates with you and if it's been helpful. All right, so guys, that's it. That's going to wrap up this episode. Remember, as always, I'm here for you. I believe in you, and I am rooting for you. But you have to, come on, say it with me, say it loud, say it proud, take action. Have an awesome, amazing day, guys, and I'll see you right back here on the next episode.